Okay, so I just hit stream. We're actually like 40 seconds early. Look at us. Usually we're late, right?
Can't be late to your own show, buddy.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think I've ever been late. That's complete
What are you
bullshit.
trying to say?
I'm saying it's all your fault. No, I'm just joking. I'm just waiting for It's kind of stupid. I kind of wish you could like put this in. You could say you're going live, and then the link goes out like 5 minutes before it actually goes live. You know what I mean? Instead of like everyone just got the notification, but the video's already recording.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's live streaming. It's just how it works.
Hey, Mike.
Some people like to hit the button and jump right into it.
I got to get the chat back into the thing here. So Mike is here. And
Hey, Mike. How you doing, bud?
oh, here. Oh, cool. The chat's already there. We got Russell. We got
Russell
Rob.
and Rob.
I'd like to see at least 10 people here before we start.
There's 15.
Is there? Why am I not seeing that? I'm seeing
Right at the bottom, underneath me. How many watching now?
yeah, mine's showing 8.
Mine's showing 17. Hit refresh.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm afraid I'll fuck something up. Hey, Sleuth, Omar, Baba Kinkin. I'm still showing 8. What do you got?
17. Hang on, let me refresh. 18.
18. Hello, Shaman. All right, fuck it. We're just going to start.
Merry Christmas.
Hello, everybody,
Joe,
and welcome from Boston. And we got Josh, we got Candace, we got Jig, BMW.
Gerald Griffin. Are you from Newfoundland, bud? That's the worst part with the lag.
I was gonna do this whole thing for Christmas. You know, I was gonna put like a Santa hat on and get like a Christmassy drink and all that kind of shit. And then, you know, when do I have
decided not to be a fag?
When do I have time to do any of that shit anyway? But I do have some really, really cool stories, Christmas stories for you guys. And
yes, I have seen that video, Sleuth.
And I got something else. But anyway, just to start the show, I'm your host, Will Pender.
And I am your bearded co-host, Ryan Sharpe.
And now I'm going to get, I can't do the Santa hat, but I did get something. Just hang on.
What? What are you doing? Merry Christmas, everybody. So this will be our last stream before Christmas.
Hi, my little man.
Oh, you're bringing in Isaac.
Oh, shit, my headphone. Yeah, I couldn't do the Santa hat thing, but my little man got one. Oh! So I thought I'd bring him on to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. You're going to wish
Try not and drop him.
Say hi. Poor little guy. He had to get his shots today. I think he had 2 shots and some other stuff, so he's had a long, hard day. But
he's got his vaccinations, so now he's autistic.
Hey, don't even go there. But I just wanted to bring him on with his cute little Santa hat.
You're the one who pumped your kid full of fucking
hi, bud.
mercury.
Hi. Can you smile for everyone? Say hi, bud. Hi. Okay, he's not going to do it. But anyway, I do have some awesome stories, so just give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to bring him back to his mom, who refuses to go on camera. Hang on.
Oh, my. There we go. Yeah, I don't know. Vaccinations are great and all, but
you're paranoid of everybody and just anything.
Well, no, it's the preservatives that they put in them and the adjuvants. Right?
But see,
there's no safe level of fucking mercury. Period. There's no safe level of mercury. That's the truth of the matter.
You risk either getting something happen because of a inoculation, or you risk getting the thing that.
Well, whatever. They got cures for all the diseases. You can't cure fucking being made retarded from.
No. They don't have cures for all that shit. Some of that shit's gonna kill you anyway if you get it, and that's the whole point.
What? Like what? Name one, Mr. Full of Information.
Mr. Full of Information would have to go on the internet because I don't have a fucking encyclopedic brain like some people over here. But I'm telling you, it's a thing. Anyways,
it's a thing. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. You don't think people would be making billions of dollars if it wasn't good for you, do you?
Exactly. Now.
Right? Yeah.
Now, I got, what I wanted to do was get some very specific Christmas stories, that are paranormal in nature. And as me and Ryan discussed before, getting those ones that weren't, Krampus or something else, fucking thing. Just hang on.
I thought Good Evening was Buenos Tardes.
Yeah, most of them are like Krampus or Belschnickel or whatever. But I did find some pretty neat stories. So I'm going to start with the first one, and then we'll move on from there. So the story that I found, it was really neat, actually. It happened all the way back in 1909, and the story was actually printed in a paper called the Dresden Times on December 23rd, 1978. So anyway, as the story goes, this is actually an article. And this apparently had happened in Wales of Great Britain back in 1909. So it revolves around this 11-year-old boy named Oliver Thomas. And it was Christmas Eve. It was lots of snow. And, like back then, I don't know if it was common everywhere, but like, if you ever watch Disney shows now, you have like old Disney shows, like the family Christmases, like everybody got together, right? Like the house is just full of people, and not just like the large families of the time, but like, man, they invited their doctors, the people who knew their doctors, the people who made their glasses, just fucking everybody.
They just showed up, started giving vaccinations.
They showed up, started giving them vaccinations, and anyway, so this family was no different, right? Now they actually lived on a Brecon, in a Brecon farmhouse, or maybe the place was called Brecon, I don't know, but it was a farmhouse, and they had this crazy, family get together, the kind where everybody sat around the kitchen table and around the fireplace roasting chestnuts. Like, you heard that, right? Like roasting chestnuts over the fire. Probably never have done it or know anyone who's done it, but all those old sayings, like, they actually did that shit back then. So that's what they were doing. And they were celebrating Christmas, and they had the local priest there and his wife. They had the family's veterinary surgeon. They even had a fucking auctioneer from a nearby town, right? So like, it was a pretty happening place. And anyway, as the night progressed, it was snowing during the night. And around 11 p.m., the snow stopped, and there was about 5 inches of fresh snow on the ground. And it became one of those gentle, calm nights. Except, apparently there were no stars visible. It was just this black sky. And it was around this time. Now, back then, like, they didn't, at least here, they didn't have any, like, working water pipes. This is back when they had a well, and you have to go up to the well to get your water. So they had a sink, and the father noticed that they were at, like, the bucket that they had leaned up against the sink was out of water. So he's like, like every father did back then, he made the children do all the work, right? So he sent his son Oliver out to do this. He's something he's probably done 100 times. And anyway, so Oliver, he bundled up, he put his stuff on, and he stepped out into the yard or whatever. And very shortly after he closed the door, everybody in the kitchen heard him, like, screaming, like these blood-curdling screams, like, for help. And the whole family in the kitchen, they jumped up, knocking chairs over, and just it was just this mad panic to get out there and see what was happening. And the priest actually grabbed one of those paraffin lanterns on the way, and they got out on the stoop, and the priest waved the lantern across, trying to get some kind of field of vision there, and they didn't see anything, and they were just kind of looking around the yard, and they didn't see anything. But the really bizarre thing that everybody noticed was that the screaming wasn't actually coming from out around. It was actually coming from above them. And they looked up to the sky, and they didn't actually see anything, but that's where the voice was coming from. And they actually heard him say something like, "They've got me, help, help, they've got me." And as he was screaming like that, the voice started to get fainter and fainter until it disappeared. They were just stunned. They just stood around stunned as to what was actually happening. And of course, the priest had the lantern, so they were shining it around the yard to see if they could see anything. And what they found was like Oliver's footsteps, tracks in the snow, had actually gone out about 75 feet from the door, and they just stopped dead. And about 15 feet from there was the bucket that he was carrying. And so, there was no sign of a struggle. There was no anything like that. They didn't know what the hell happened, but he just simply up and disappeared. And so the next day, the police actually rounded up folks from like a nearby town, and they did a big search right around the area. They went out of all the different buildings, nearby hills, and they questioned everyone that was there that night. Everybody told the same story. They even went down in the well, and he wasn't down there. And of course, the tracks, like the footsteps and stuff like that, never even went to the well. So the only conclusion that they could reach was that Oliver had been grabbed by something in the air and taken upwards. Right? So, I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was alien abduction when I read it. And, so that happened way back in 1909. So that was a pretty chilly tale, and if nothing else, a very bizarre disappearance. And, I just want to say hello to everybody that just came in, that I popped in while I was telling that story. But, so, Ryan, your thoughts?
That's a bit of an unusual one. I will say that I kind of missed a little bit of the end of the story there because I was trying to answer some chat stuff. Although apparently David Plady showed up and gave us a thumbs down.
I'll tell you what, we had that thumbs down like the second after I said like I last night I scheduled it. It's the first time I scheduled a live podcast, and like right after I scheduled it, it had a thumbs down. It's like it didn't even fucking happen yet. It's like 12 hours from now, but it just goes to show that we got some people that like hate me or you or both of us, and just
that are subscribed, but
they're subscribed, and every time a video comes out, it's like cock-sucking fucker. They just go in and anything that they could do right to they think it matters. I guess I don't know. I really don't fucking care. But
well, you know what? It just means that we're living rent free in somebody's head.
We are, and it's something else that I wanted to mention about what we're doing tonight. You will be visited by 3 spirits, and I'm not even joking because Ryan told me before we started he did a destruction ritual.
What the fuck are you talking about?
I'm only fucking with you.
I got all this stuff packed away. I'd have to go and dig it out. So, okay. This, to get back to this story now. So the family went outside. They heard the kid screaming. And
from above.
And his voice was disappearing off into the distance. So, and that was it. Like, they never found the kid. He was gone. Yeah,
they never did find him. And, there was a lot of people there, like I said, and like the veterinary surgeon, the priest, and they heard it from above, and going away. Unless like the whole family was like fuck that Oliver kid. Let's throw him down the well. Of course, they checked the well, but who knows? Maybe the whole family fucking hated him, and they roasted him over the fire. I mean, that's the only way that you could explain it away, other than paranormal, to say that the whole family hated this kid and just like made him disappear.
That's like a real Jeepers Creepers kind of a moment, you know?
Yeah.
With the just and gone. Now, it's interesting that last night we covered a story about a possible pterosaur, right?
Yeah.
Now, you know, the idea of reptiles, flying reptiles in winter, I don't know. But, you know, the Omar just dropped what I was going to get into, I guess. The idea of alternate dimensions, right?
Well, yeah.
Portals and whatnot. I mean, when we're talking about the paranormal, you know, I've given this a lot of thought. There has to be a place for these phenomenons to come from, right? There's so many, you know, Bigfoot and Loch Ness, spirits, UFOs, shadow people, jinn, all the different crypto creatures. You know, the older that I get, the more, and like the more I realize how advanced our modern technology has come. Not to mention the fact that we're everywhere. Human beings are literally fucking everywhere. This planet is just maggoty with human beings.
Isn't it terrible?
And
it's awful. People are terrible.
People are terrible. Yeah.
Except for this group.
Except for this group, yeah. I'm all for having more people, but I think
no, you're not. You hate people like me.
Space stations and other planets. No, I just want them far away. Right.
I love people, just at a distance. Right.
That's exactly. I think the stuff that people come up with, like, you know, technology and stories and all that, is great. And I'd love for there to be 10 times the amount of people than there are.
So you're like, I want people to make me shit, but just not interact with me at all. Just make my dinner and fuck off.
I like the interaction like this, you know.
Yeah, this is all right, but this is a good group of people so far.
People, but you know, if it ever gets too much, there's a little X in the top right-hand corner of my screen. One click and I'm out.
That's right. I do like that. It's a good feature.
You know. It's
not that we've ever had to use it here, but you know, there are some pretty shitty. I mean, everybody agrees. Look at that. People are the worst. I hate people. Like, you know, I mean, come on.
People are cunts.
That's right. That's right. And we can all agree on that.
Oh boy. But I think stories like this illustrate a very the very unique nature of some of the paranormal encounters that happen. You know, there's so many people that talk about the big ones, right? Ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs. You know, those are these big paranormal situations that so many people across the board have had experiences with. Then there's these fringe things, right? And I think that's what Skinwalker Ranch really illustrated for a lot of people. That there could be these areas with very concentrated, bizarre, you know, Fortean activity. Things that are just way beyond the normal.
I think what you're driving at is the same. Like, I thought this before too, right? Like, you got all these different kinds of entities and different kinds of this to that culture to this culture, and a lot of times they're really describing the same things. It's just like, you know, that's their name for it somewhere else in the world, right? And I thought the same thing, right? Because they're so elusive. They're so, you know, it's so rare that somebody sees or interacts or has an experience with these different, you know, various different types of entities, whether it's shadow people, whether it's Bigfoot, whether it's, you know, whatever. And I think I thought the same thing as you, that maybe there are different portals or areas in the world where the the reality or the dimension is thin, and we have the neighboring dimension able to overlap, able to pass through. And the Skinwalker Ranch is a great example, because there was that time where they was it not Tom, I forget his real name, I keep thinking about the fictitious name, but where he actually saw the rip in the sky.
I always mix it up. Like, was his real name Tad?
Ted.
Something like
that. I don't know. I just remember him as Tom. But
Tom Gorman. I think his real name was actually like Tad.
I know it got Sherman. Like the real name is Sherman at the end, right? Like the last name.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I mean they saw the actual dimensions opening up, and I mean there are different parts in the world where they say like here's the 8 different gates to hell that open up along this stretch, right? Or then you had the ley lines. There's certain spots on the ley lines that are said to be areas of power, where like monumental structures are built, like whether it's the pyramids or something else. They're like important structures that are carefully planned and put there, right? So is this areas where the reality is thin? Is this where the dimension is thin? Maybe hot spots where people see certain entities, that's what it is. And maybe the entities coming through don't even try it. Just like us, right? Like we're walking around, maybe you just walk into a pocket somewhere. You're still in your world as far as you can see, but maybe in another world you're a shadow, like part of you kind of seep through to that reality. Maybe we are shadow people somewhere else, right?
Well, and that could very well be the reality of the situation. I know I was reading reading a paper on dark matter today, and the idea with regular matter is that if you look at space-time as being like a bed sheet, okay, that's held in 4 corners. You take a bowling ball and put it in the middle, right, and it draws down that bed sheet. That is what matter does to space-time. It creates this gravity well, and if you roll a ball along that bed sheet, it's going to get caught up in it and go around and around and around, and that's what we call an orbit and that kind of thing. But I read a description of dark matter, which was kind of interesting, and it was an idea that if regular matter is sitting on top of the bed sheet, pushing it down, that dark matter is under the bed sheet, pushing it up in the same fashion. Because there are some schools of thought on it, that dark matter, this extra gravity that we seem to observe in the universe. Hey, there's my brother. Hey, Evan. That dark matter is in a slightly offset universe that pushes up. That while we can't interact with the matter in this other universe, right, it's just slightly out of phase, but gravity still leaks across the barrier. And that it turns out that for everything to operate the way it does, we need that. We need that extra gravity to hold everything together. That if it wasn't for that dark matter, that, as far as the equations tell us, the different galaxies, at the rate that they're spinning, would just fucking spin apart. So it's just, again, is that old hermetic principle, as above, so below, and apparently that goes that's just as true for reality itself. That there's something, we consider ourselves above, but there's something just below that's helping keep all this together. And it would make sense to me if one day we discovered that we were able to pierce that veil and that there's a whole other world. Maybe physics are just slightly different there. Maybe not. Maybe they're exactly the same. But we pierce through and find a whole other world where things are similar, I guess.
Oh, for sure. Especially like, you know, if you buy into the multiple world theory and stuff like that, right? We could every time
The many worlds.
Yeah, it's like every time something happens, like another universe splits off, and the opposite happened there. Like every time you make a choice,
that's a little different.
Well, whatever, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So there's a that idea. I don't know how I feel about that one in particular. Right. The idea that every time we make a decision, that the possibilities split off, so much that there are an infinite number of parallel universes that exist simultaneously along with us. And if the number is infinite, then at some point things have to repeat, right? That you can only have so many combinations of atoms, even in an entire universe. And that along that line of thinking, if there are an infinite number of these universes, that in some of them things will be exactly the same as here, but JFK didn't die. Hitler won the war. Franz Ferdinand was never assassinated.
I thought about that. What you were talking about earlier with the bowling ball on the fabric of space time.
Well, it's a bowling ball on a bed sheet, but sure.
Whatever. Well, the reason why I say space time is because I saw something, some documentary. I don't know if it was one of the space ones that I own. I can't remember the name of it, but they did a similar thing, right? A bowling ball on a sheet or something like that. And if that's moving around space, right, with the mass and the gravity, and that's moving time, it's like this belief that you could almost like collapse 2 points, right, of space. You could collapse it together, and if you could pierce through it, then that would be traveling faster than the speed of light. Like you literally bypass, this whole giant thing of space that you collapse together, right?
Well, are you talking about because there's an idea that you can stretch space-time. So you have an object sitting in space, and you expand space-time behind it, and you contract space-time in front of it, effectively bringing two disparate points in space-time together for a fraction, and then normal space resumes. And that way, the object doesn't actually have to go in excess of the speed of light physically, right? It creates its own little bubble of normal space-time, and then stretches and compresses. And by that way, you can circumnavigate all of that space without actually breaking the rule of traveling faster than the speed of light.
Yes.
But then there's the idea of collapsing 2 points and tunneling, and that's what we refer to as an Einstein-Rosen bridge, or what people call a wormhole.
Yes. Okay. Now, with that said, because I can't remember where we're going with that from the...
Well, just the idea that all these different phenomenon have to be coming from somewhere, right? Like, it's very interesting with the Native Americans when they talk about Bigfoot. When they talk about Bigfoot, they don't speak of him of being just a flesh and blood creature. That in addition to being a flesh and blood creature, that he's also a spirit entity, and as a spirit entity is able to step over into another realm. And the more I look into physics, whether it's string theory or dark matter physics or whatever, there seems to be indications of a multiple universe. And I think that lends us a greater level of credibility. Statistics show that in one universe there is a Ryan clown made of ant. I can guarantee you he has a beard. And in a many worlds theory, like that's the kind of weird level of truth that would exist, right? That there's a universe where everything is the same of here as here, but everybody is made out of rock and silicone and minerals.
Well, I'll tell you, in a multiple universe, something that happened where I had more time was I was going to make a Photoshop picture for our Christmas special, and I was going to Photoshop Christmas lights and ornaments in your beard. But then I thought, I was like, yeah, if I fucking put the effort in that, Ryan's like, no goddamn way am I fucking put that picture up there. So, I guess
you know me so well.
It would have been epic, man. But
let's see, the John Chang Ring of Fire. Are we talking about like this Pacific Ring of Fire, or is this something else?
The one that was in that song, fell down through a ring of fire.
Johnny Cash.
There you go.
No, the Pacific Ring of Fire is a highly geologically active region that borders along BC and California, and then over into Hawaii, and then up around into Japan.
Okay, well,
but I'm not sure what Sleuth is talking about there.
All right.
Ring of Fire is the name of the documentary. Okay, gotcha.
All right, well, to bring it back to the Christmas part, at least before we go off on her, I do have another pretty creepy Christmas story. And I got one from Spike afterwards, too. I thought we'd do the whole 3 thing, and if we have time, do some more. But anyway, so this is a story that I came across that, again, happened a long time ago. Actually, this one was 1885, Christmas Eve. So the first thing I'm going to say right off the bat is that it seems like if you have anything to do with a farm, or, it's just bad fucking luck for this shit. I mean, even if you look at the modern stuff, the cattle mutilation, Skinwalker Ranch, like if you want to own a farm, expect some really weird fucking shit. That seems to be the
well, one of the spookiest situations that I've been in personally involved a farm.
There you go. Right, and actually, I'll get you to tell that story after this.
Sure.
So anyway, this again happened with a guy that had something to do with a farm. So anyway, this was it was on the Christmas Eve of 1985, and there was a guy named John Larson, and he was a farmhand, and he spent his Christmases with his boss's family, like him and his wife. So it was an elderly couple from Seneca, Illinois, and they were named Patrick and Matilda Rooney. Anyway, they do what, especially back in 1985, no TV, no fucking electricity. What do? You drink, right? I mean, even with that stuff today, we drink in excess. So that's what
here.
Well, I didn't even get to the store. Don't even start with the liquor. I didn't get time to go get any. Anyway,
jeez, go on your lunch break like a real man.
Yeah, I was eating. Actually, what did I do for lunch? I had McDonald's. Okay, I got more issues. Anyway.
Well, pick a vice, man.
Pick a vice, yeah. So the guy stayed at this elderly couple's, his boss and his wife. He was staying there, and they drank probably a lot, right? And at some point, John hits the sack, and he slept well, with the exception that he was awoke and heard like this coughing fit downstairs. He didn't really think much of it. Who would, right? So he goes back to bed. Anyway. When he woke up the next morning, he found all this black powdery shit over his pillow. And he thought that was really weird. And then he went downstairs, and he I guess he went to his boss's room, just a question about the black shit on his pillow. And that's where things really turned south. When he went to his boss's room, where the elderly couple was, the husband, Patrick Rooney, he was dead. Right, but the wife wasn't there. So at this point, John's freaking out, right? Like, holy shit, what happened? So he's like running through the house, trying to, I guess, find her or find out what happened, get some kind of sense of what had happened while he was sleeping. He's terrified, he's anxious, and he ends up coming to the kitchen. And of course, things are more disturbing than, he, you could even anticipate at this point. What he found was this hole in the floor, but it wasn't just a hole. It was burned. The hole was burned into the floor. It was filled with ashes, which at this point he's starting to connect, right? Like he had, that's what was on his pillow, was ashes. And here it is in the floor. It's this hole in the floor, and there's ashes in it. And the most disturbing part of it is, sitting inside the pile of ashes is a single human foot. And this is the foot of Matilda Rooney. This is all that actually remained of her. And of course, this was a case of spontaneous human combustion. And, like a scientist and shit like that looked over the case, and it was estimated that her body reached a temperature of 1400 degrees Celsius. And there was nothing in there that they could find to suggest that a normal fire had broken out, like like she caught herself on fire from the stove or a propane leak or whatever. I don't even know if they fucking used that shit back then. Anyway, there was nothing to suggest any of that. And stranger, was how it happened. It was such a controlled fire, right? And the article that I read, suggested that this is also what killed Mr. Rooney, but he wasn't burned to ash. Now, the article wasn't really specific as to how he died, but it did say that the only reason why John survived was because he was sleeping behind a closed door 1 floor up from the couple. Now, people start to speculate if John actually murdered the couple and tried to cover it up, but, nobody could explain how, it could have been such a controlled fire, such a specific blaze, or just how Mrs. Rooney would have burned up the way that she did. Now, apparently there was a local legend that says that Mrs. Rooney burst into flame as punishment for the sins that she committed for drinking, right? Of course, we all know that's bullshit, but I started thinking after I read this story,
if not, tonight will be one hell of a show.
Yeah, well, like it got me thinking. I'm sure, like, we've looked up spontaneous human combustion, before. I'm not even gonna go reference that fucking thing. Oh, Jesus, getting hot in here.
Okay, so many years ago, when Will and I first started hanging out.
Oh, here we go.
It was late at night, and we were watching a program on spontaneous human combustion. And when I first met Will, he still is to a degree, but when I first met Will, he was a brutal, not hypochondriac. What's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, hypochondriac.
Is it hypochondriac?
Yeah.
Brutal hypochondriac. Like, every time he's like, when I do this with my arm and I touch it here, it hurts. Do you think that's cancer? All the time. And we just finished watching this hour-long program, and I noticed him moving around and fidgeting a lot. He kept fidgeting. I'm like, fuck, man, what's wrong? He's like, and he looked at me and he's like, oh, do you find it a little hot in here? Whew, it's a little hot, I gotta, I think, I don't know. I think I gotta take a cold shower. And gets up and runs out of the room. And I mean, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. His whole family is asleep. Runs out of the room. I'm sitting in his bedroom, and I'm like, no, there's no way. There's no way he's. And I hear the shower kick on. He seriously ran into the bathroom and turned on the cold shower because he thought he was spontaneously human.
Hey.
He was about to spontaneously human combust.
I'm a sick man in my current condition. I've come a long way since then. But it's not Ebola, George. Don't even start with me. That cough that cough is appropriate and attractive.
Oh God.
No, I'm a germaphobe. I got like a little bit of OCD and shit too, right? Like, I'm telling you, I got some bad wires.
You got a laundry list.
I got a laundry list. Well, of course, that's why my last album was bad wiring, right? I'm wired wrong up here. But it lets me create some cool stuff sometimes. Balance and all that being what it is. I don't know if I really believed I was going to burn in flames, though. But anyway.
But you still got into a cold shower.
Yeah, I probably did do that. But anyway, getting back to the story before we run down this really like sad turn of events for me. There was now you've looked up lots of pictures on spontaneous human combustion, as have I, and one of the most popular fucking pictures that pops out is this foot. Right.
Foot in the middle of the scorch.
And I wondered, is that the one? Right, but I thought that was on like a hardwood floor. I don't know. I can't remember. See, but it got me thinking. I wonder if that's the case that they're referencing. I don't feel actually. Now you mentioned, I'm a little bit itchy, George. Well, see, you know what it is. Your mind is a powerful thing, and my mind works against me. Right? Yeah, all the time. And I have a very powerful mind, but it's against me.
But it's untamed and uncontrollable.
It's untamed and uncontrolled. Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria, as Bill Murray once said.
Yes.
So now I don't really have a whole lot on spontaneous human combustion because that's something that I literally just fucking ran into really late last night while I was looking for stories. But I do have one from.
It's an interesting topic, and I mean, I've thought about it a lot in terms of how would science explain something like this, right? Because for me, aliens and spirits and dimensions and all this stuff, magic and all this stuff is just science to me, right? It's either science we don't yet understand, it's science that we don't have command of. It is the universe acting out in ways that are just beyond our comprehension at the moment. And the idea that, what is heat, right? Heat is literally just the atoms moving around faster and faster and faster. They bump into one another and add a little bit of energy to the next one. It's literally just kinetic energy.
You think it's like friction?
Individual atoms.
Like friction, like a microwave, like just the friction of atoms?
Friction, you're talking about three different things now.
I multitask, is how I roll.
Friction is separate. Well, it is, but it isn't. You rub two things together and, the friction, it's the word we use to describe it. What it's doing is it's causing the molecules in your skin, the water molecules in your cells, to gain more and more energy, right? The pressure, it's all about, like, this is just kinetic energy. We're talking about transferring energy from one form to another. So kinetic energy turns into heat energy, right? The same way that pressure, right? If you push something hard enough, then that pressure will create heat as well, because it causes the atoms and the molecules, to vibrate, and as they bump into one another, they heat up. So are there situations we talked a lot about in past shows, and just tonight we've talked about situations where there's a breakdown of physics in our normal universe. I know I'm doing a lot of bunny ears tonight. In our normal physics, there's a breakdown in the veil, and something from another universe crosses over into ours, right? Now, are there situations where physics can break down in a way where there's energy being transferred across from one? We just talked about gravity making its way across from another universe to our universe and affecting it to the degree that that we can detect a gravity spike in an area that has no visible objects out in space, right? And now, is it possible that something could be transferring kinetic energy or thermal energy across the veil? That same kind of breakdown in our physical world, where we end up with portals and dimensions and telekinesis and levitation and spirits and aliens and all of this crazy stuff. is there a situation where things can break down all of a sudden, and we have this transfer of energy from one part of our universe to another, or another universe to our universe, and all of a sudden somebody's atoms are, transgendered, transferring, furry,
Hey, you gotta be
scalies.
careful what you say now, right? It's like you can't refer to them as boys and girls. There's like fucking 16 different. I got news for you guys. Anyone who thinks like that, you're a fucking male or female. You got a dick or you got a giny. And frankly, this whole fucking, not to go too off topic, but this whole fucking political correctness, fucking, oh my god, it's ever irritating. Anyway, I digress.
Well, what's your stance on hermaphrodites?
They're
Somebody
both. They're
who
both.
has a penis and a vagina.
They're both. It's like a number four is when you hold hands and you both take a dump.
And is the
Right.
number five when you do it back to back and hold hands?
Well, that's right. You do it back to back over a hole in the ground, and that's number five.
That's a number five.
Number
So,
five. Yeah.
I wonder if there are situations where these same kinds of breakdowns in physics that result in because we see this stuff on a quantum scale, right? Like when you're looking at quantum mechanics, there are situations where particles will appear and then disappear, where two particles will move through one another without affecting one another, where a particle will move through a matter and come out the other side without any problem. So on a quantum level, this kind of crazy shit happens all the time. But on the in the macroscopic, we're not used to that kind of shit, right? We're not used to things appearing and disappearing, or people walking through walls and stuff like that. But I wonder if there are situations where you could end up gaining, like, the molecules in your body could end up receiving extra vibrational energy to the point where it just vibrates itself into, emoliation, right? I know you're too caught up with chat to be paying attention to what I'm saying.
Well, sometimes your detail goes a little far for me, and I'm trying to piece it together, and this is easier to follow. Sometimes.
Ryan, be careful. Don't quote What the Bleep Do We Know documentary. It was proven to be a deception. Well, the overall message that What the Bleep Do We Know further down the rabbit hole, and the overarching story that they had put together was a deception. The individual pieces of science that they used to push their narrative, many of them were on point. I mean, the fact that vibrating atoms is what heat is, that the transfer of heat energy and turning kinetic energy into, talking about the double slit experiment specifically is true. It is a true experiment. And it has been performed in many different ways, and has actually been altered to be 10,000 times more complex than the original double slit experiment, and it still shows us, in fact, the most complex version of it, and I can't even describe it because it's like a fucking Rube Goldberg machine with all the mirrors and bouncing and stuff like that, it definitely does look like that some particles can transfer information back through the time stream. And it's all very wild and crazy to us when we're looking at it from our perspective, right? Because we're made up of billions of molecules that are made up of all kinds of tinier atoms, and things down on the quantum level are so complicated that when we try to take that complicated quantum level and transfer it over to the macroscopic and explain just the simple interactions of our cells, things tend to break down because it is too much hyper complexity within such an already crazy organism. You know, you got to realize that you're a collection of single-celled organisms that work together in such perfect harmony that you act as a single being somehow. That together it's your single being. Yes, it's turning into effed up science. I'm sorry, but I really do feel that a lot of these phenomenon are rooted in scientific principles that we do not yet understand. And I think that by delving into what we consider the paranormal or the supernormal or the Fortean, that, you know, we can gain a greater, deeper understanding of the universe than we currently have. And that by accepting some of these things like spirits and abduction and psychic phenomenon, that it gives us a deeper understanding for those of us who are willing to listen, for those of even spontaneous human combustion, for those of us who are willing to listen and to believe, and well, to at least hold it as a possibility. I don't believe in anything, but I allow for the possibility of all things.
Okay. So
okay.
All right, so I can't remember where I was.
Thanks, Omar. I appreciate that. There was quite a few nice comments that people have made through there. I do appreciate them all. Thank you very much. I you know, I have lots of thoughts and ideas on things. I've spent many years reading up on science. In fact, it was my interest in science that eventually gave way to my interest in the paranormal and all those things, the supernormal, if you will. Because I think that the earliest scientists were the ones who were looking at the strange little things that didn't make sense and asked those deeper questions, and were called crazy and insane and whatever. And down the road, you know, we're seen as visionaries. So we were talking about thanks, Miss Kruger. That's Kelly. That's right, Kelly. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your take on spontaneous human combustion? What do you think it is, Will?
Well, I mean, the immediate thing that I thought of, and it seems someone had actually mentioned it earlier, trying to link like alcohol and cigarettes into it, because it seems to be a common thing that in a lot of cases that I've seen, like alcohol was involved.
Go ahead and say something bad about alcohol and cigarettes. I fucking dare you.
Well, I'm not. Well, cigarettes will give you a limp dick. I mean, that's not a great thing, but the alcohol, that can also make you impotent if you do too much. Okay, that's two bad things. I dared.
I dared. This is two bad things.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it seems to be a common ingredient in a lot of these different cases where you have like the person who spontaneously combusted will have drank. You know, not necessarily a lot, but you know, it's usually a thing. And then you just think about the different gases that are in the body, right? Like you have gas anyway. I mean, there's some people that are just gassy. Like I remember reading this one story. I fucking laughed my ass off at it. But this was in the news, right? So this guy, he worked at some like meat processing plant or something like that, and they had a walk-in front counter where people could go in and they could buy like different cuts of meat, right? And they had to fire the fucking guy because apparently his fart stunk so bad that like people would come into the front of the shop and just be like, "Oh my god!" Like, you know, and would turn them off from buying any meat. And like the manager's like, "Man, we gotta fucking do something with this guy. Like, he's driving away our customers." And they fired him. And then this guy was bringing them to court because it was like, "I can't help it. It's a bodily function," right? So, you know, and we know that the gas is a thing like with I mean, fuck, we know methane burns. How many fucking people lit their farts on fire, right? So you take an incredibly gassy fucking person who, like, is probably, like, shitting up a storm in his bed, shit-faced drunk, and lights a cigarette. Who knows? Maybe it, like, you know, just travels in there. You know, like.
So that's your take on spontaneous human combustion. How fucking enlightening.
Well, that's what I'm saying, man. You know. So, if you're an incredibly gassy person, maybe it's not a good idea to, you know, be drinking and lighting cigarettes and farts in the nighttime. I don't fucking know.
So, okay. Now, I know that I'm totally hijacking stuff here, but too fucking bad. This is what's happening. Vicky, I think it was Vicky, brought up something that I really want to elaborate on, and it's something that I've meant to actually go and search up a couple times, but I don't have the names or anything in front of me, but we're going to talk about this now. So the Akashic memory. Do you know what I'm talking about, Will?
Yeah, vaguely. You tell me, and I'll tell you if I remember.
Okay. So the idea of the Akashic memory is that it's like this ephemeral hall of records where somehow all the information that has ever been accrued on this planet is stored somewhere and is the Akashic records, right? The Akashic, yes, that's right. And that somehow certain people are able to access the Akashic records and divine this information. Okay. So maybe a year and a half ago, I became aware of a neuroscientist. I'm not sure I can't remember what his exact title was or what his name is. If I can find it, I don't know. I'll put it in the comments or get Will to add it to the description. I'll do my best, Willful.
No promises.
So, no promises whatsoever. So, the scientists did a series of experiments using somebody who was completely vetted as being truly psychic. Okay, so they built this helmet. It had all these different electrodes built into it, and they were able to basically view the electromagnetic output of a human brain. And so they took this gentleman who was able to take a picture of somebody, and he'd stare at the picture for a couple of minutes, and then he would go into his little trance kind of a thing. And from there, he was able to divine all this very personal information. When I say personal, I mean stuff that, you know, the individual's wives or husbands and family had no idea of, right? And stuff that in the program that I watched, they didn't even go into the detail, because the person who was the target of the reading was like, okay, listen, like, this is way too fucking personal. You can't put this on your video. And what they looked at, they put this helmet on the psychic, and they put the helmet on the target, who was just a regular person, actually in another building on the same campus, but in another building. So what they discovered is that when the psychic began doing his reading, that his brainwaves and the brainwaves of the subject suddenly would synchronize.
Oh, I remember this. We actually talked about this before.
Did we?
Yeah, we did this whole theory on the idea that it could be stored in like everybody's thoughts being stored in a cloud somewhere, or like the magnetosphere or something like that.
Well, that is exactly the conclusion that this neuroscientist came to, was that the Earth's magnetic field itself acts as a... I mean, you look at most of the media that we've used up until CDs were invented. That a lot of it was stored electromagnetically. Little electromagnetic ones and zeros stored on a tape or on a reel or whatever, right? And we live in a huge electromagnetic sphere. It's all pervasive. We have no choice but to be mired in it. And that things like psychic phenomena, remote viewing, clairaudience, clairvoyance, whatever, is all access to this giant electromagnetic record that since the beginning of life on this planet, that all this information, that everything that's ever been learned by everything that is aware on this planet has been stored in this naturally occurring cloud. And that at some point, this scientist hopes to create a technology that will allow all of us to access this information, that anybody can access this. And insofar that he even described the biological processes where when you learn something, there's a 20-minute lag time between when you learn it and it goes into your short-term memory, and then it slowly gets filtered into your long-term memory. And that during that process, that upload process from short-term to long-term, that he believes that there's a simultaneous upload into this electromagnetic storage device, and that which is the planet's magnetic field, electromagnetic field, and that storage device being accessible by not just psychics, but eventually by everybody. And I'd just like to point out that I believe we've broken a new simultaneous record for concurrent watchers. We're up into the 60s right now.
That's the first time I ever had scheduled it.
So again, thank you very much, everybody who's here joining us tonight. I apologize if there's any questions that we not glaze over, but we miss. We're here shooting the shit about stuff, and it's hard to. I mean, I'm trying to read chat and talk at the same time, and I know Will is doing his best to keep up with chat and everything there.
That's the same problem I have when I'm reading the stories. Like, I can't watch the chat while I'm doing the stories, right? So I miss everything said during.
But I don't want that to ever discourage anybody from writing anything. Even if we don't talk about it or whatever, we are watching, we are reading, and we greatly appreciate it. It means a lot to us. And you never know what, memory or thought or topic you're going to trigger. So, definitely, throw your thoughts out there. This is a place, Will coined the phrase, the online campfire. And I love that. I love the idea that we're all gathered together around our glowing screens in the dark of a winter night, and we're exchanging ideas. Will and I have a voice, but by doing the live streams, we're able to give a voice to everybody. Use your brains to telepathically project your ideas. There you go.
I think they're, well, I don't know if it's related, but they want your picture to Photoshop the beard stuff in that I mentioned earlier.
Oh, I see. Yeah. No, fuck that.
It would have been epic, garland, Christmas lights.
I wouldn't mind, but it's too fucking close to that whole, it's too close to that whole beard glitter thing.
See, and I think you'd look fine with beard glitter. I think it would be
that made me so mad when I seen that people put glitter in their beards. Oh, that made me so angry. You do not fuck up a beard with glitter.
Actually, I'll tell you something funny.
Christ.
One time Ryan came home. Fuck glitter. This is even better. One time, this is before your last visit, and we remember we went out to this place for ice cream. Fucking, Ryan got this big giant beard, right? And I look over and I notice he got fucking ice cream all over his beard. And I'm like, hey, Ryan, let me take a picture. He's like, fuck off! He's turning around and hiding his face from me. Just like any time there's like, it's like, Ryan, should we get this to eat? It's like, no, why? I have a beard. It's a problem.
If the food's not beard friendly, I'm not going to eat it in public.
Yeah. Oh man.
No, I do not use beard oil. No, that's the thing. That's the thing. $1 Beard Club. There's a whole bunch of beard oils and stuff like that.
There's this dude at Tim Hortons, right? Like I go and get a coffee like almost every day before work. And he's got a fair sized beard, not like yours, right? And he comes to the fucking window and he's got this bag, like this big bag over his beard, and he looks ridiculous. And I was just thinking, man, if Ryan had to do that shit now, he'd have to have a fucking garbage bag over his fucking beard.
Oh, you mean like a beard net?
Yeah, a beard net, but it's like a fucking bag, man. Because dude got like...
it's a big sack where your fucking beard sits in. No.
Oh man, I always thought.
I mean, more power to the guy, because I mean, let's face it, he's in a situation where he's got to work a job like that, but he's committed enough to sexy, manly facial hair that he's willing to embarrass himself in public.
See, I could see you sticking up a bank. Like you walk into a bank, it's like fucking pull the gun from your beard. It's a fucking stick up. You got the beard for it, man. It's it's a proper burglary beard.
Yeah, but you know what?
Loaves of bread. Chips.
Crime seems like more work than actually working.
Yeah, well,
there's all the on the run and hiding and that kind of thing.
That's what I tell them.
Now, what I want to ask, like, what's your take on that idea of the electromagnetic, naturally occurring cloud Akashic record?
Man, we talked about this before, and I think that's right. Like, for example, if it's the magnetosphere, right? The magnetosphere is magnetized, right? I mean, if you look at, like, all the things that we have that are recorded, except for, like, CDs, but a lot of the stuff that we have were magnetized. You have tape that was magnetized, right? You have... VHS, hard drives, like the old spinner. Well, you can still get them, spinner drives.
Yeah,
right.
Spinner drives.
All magnetism.
With the Namidian magnet drives.
Right, and the old TVs. Right, you want to fuck up an old TV, you stick a magnet on it. Right, fucks. And same thing for like speakers and shit. Like the old monitors that you'd have. If you stuck a speaker next to that with a big magnet in it, it would fuck up the color.
That's literally what the speaker was like a magnet and then a diaphragm, right?
Exactly. So like,
and then the magnet would move back and forth on a coiled wire.
So that makes sense to me. And the more I think about it, like, honest to God, it's not that I'm trying to be one of those fucking sci-fi guys or whatever, but you look at all the different things like that in the world. You even look at the idea that, like, here a portal opens up and something unnatural comes in and is weird, and maybe over here the physics is weird and just a weird shit, and it's just like a fucking glitch in a video game, right? I mean, and there's law and like just the way that things work. I mean, you think about the way people model video games today, right? And the choices, and like you take like Grand Theft Auto, and you got all these NPCs, and they all have like things that they do based on what you do. You shoot a gun, well, some are going to run, some are going to call the cops, some are whatever, right? It's very basic, but I wonder if the universe isn't just a very much more complicated version of that. We're all running on code. I mean, that's what fucking DNA is. DNA is code, right? It's genetic code.
It's quaternary. Deoxyribonucleic acid works on ACTG, right? It's instead of being 10010011000, it's ACTGGGACTGGGGTC TCAGG, whatever, right? It's a more complex
like,
version of binary.
Like, not binary. Fuck, I used to know these like hex, and fuck, I used to know. I know that one goes like 1 to 10, and then A, B, C, D, E, F. I remember this from IP networking, but I can't remember what the proper term is. But yeah, like it's just the idea that there's this code, like time slips and shit like that. Well, you know, something went wrong in the Matrix. How many times have you seen Pender? How many times have you seen you know, in a video game where like I don't know, the fucking physics went all fucked up, or fuck, remember Oblivion when you try to paralyze the guard on the horse? If it didn't work right, he'd fall into like a pile of little like droplets of shit and just roll all over the
Yeah, where the character mesh breaks down, and somehow the skin remains intact, but all the different parts, the different vectors of the character mesh roll away in different directions.
Yeah, and
stretch the character skin out.
Exactly, is a glitch when people clip through walls, right? It's a glitch when so all these different things.
But in quantum mechanics, that happens all the time.
Right. So like if you look at the current state of the world, I mean, obviously, if the world is coded, it's a hell of a lot better than we can do, right? I mean, we're just dipping our toes into virtual reality with like the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive, right? And the PlayStation, I don't know what they call it, probably just VR. But yeah, we're just dipping our toes into it. I mean, right now, the only thing that they can do is like I think the best is the HTC Vive, which lets you have so much of your room that you can actually move around in, and you have these controllers, but your controllers are your only real physical interaction with the game. Like you look at real life, World War II right now, there is no limitations on space as far as we know. It's completely immersive. We have 5 different senses. You know, you have your vision, you have your touch, you have your smell, you have your taste, in your sight, right? So we're not even close to that. I remember them talking years ago about trying to develop something where like a peripheral for a game system where they could make smells, right?
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, I play a lot of games with dead things, and I don't really know I don't really know if that's a smell I really want to smell in my room. But it's just the fact that that's something that they had looked at, and you know, we're so far away from any of that shit. We're so far away. So like,
we think we are. Right? Like the average citizen thinks we are really far away from a lot of this stuff. But what we're discovering in the deepest aspects of the universe, and the equations that we're using to describe the physical machinations of our universe, look more and more and more like code all the time. Now, some people believe that this is because we live in a simulation. And we may very well be living in a simulation. If that's the truth of the matter, it doesn't matter, right? It really makes no difference, because we think, we feel, we're conscious. That's what matters. But if we're not living in a simulation, and the universe does exist in a very on a very intrinsic level, a very deep level, where it's a program, then at some point we may in fact be able to hack the universe. Right? There are situations, and that might be where we see all this crazy paranormal phenomena.
Well, if you
entities that are able to hack the universe.
If you remember, one of the guests we had recently, Kelly, I think she just called herself Kelly in the Raw, and I've seen what people thought, stuff like that. Not getting into that, but that was one of the things that she brought up in her whole, her whole ideology with that, was that there's certain people, you want to call them the Illuminati or whatever else, was that they have access to, I guess, the creator beings of our universe, right? And I'm just saying this as a notion. I'm not saying this is what I believe, but whoever it is that actually code it and runs this world, they're basically saying that certain people here have access to skip the laws that are in place for us and go to them and code in, you know, basically cheats. It's like Game Genie for real life, right? So I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but like you said, I do think that the more you look at everything, it's either this, right? It's either that real life is like a code, you know, like or I should say, life is like a coded. And
that would make sense, wouldn't it?
It would, unless it's
everything we experience is explainable through mathematical calculations.
For sure, right? I mean, well, this is a scenario that, you know, I bring up all the time. Like, people bring up things that people do, you know, like decisions you make. Like, you know, say somebody goes and they I don't know, they rob a bank and they shoot somebody, or they rob a corner store, right? This is someone's life. They go and they rob a corner store and they shoot somebody and they go to jail. And then you say, well, if we took this person and instead of growing up in a shithole somewhere where he never had a father and he never, you know, grew up with the kids in the neighborhood, maybe he'd turn out different, right? But these are all different parameters, right? They go, like, basically you have a person's personality, which is, you could compare to a bunch of scales. Like, you know, he's this much, you know, he's 50% more likely to react this way based on this, right? Just all these different sliders for his personality. So it's a more advanced version of what we have in games today. Like, you know what's going to happen, like a 50% chance that a character is going to run if you shoot your gun, or a 25%. It's just more nuanced and more fine-grained, I think, in real life. But if you take a person with a predetermined personality, you pretty much know, if you knew his personality inside and out, you know what kind of decision he's going to make based on certain scenarios. And I actually wonder if there aren't high-up people, like, not necessarily the government, higher than that, you know, the people the government hire to do this shit. I wonder if there's not scientists that actually, you know, do their data mining on the internet through social media of people's personalities, which they do, and they don't have, like, profiles done on people, like, based on their personality of everything we know. If we put him in this situation, he's going to do this, and this is going to happen. So I'll give you an idea. Say I'm one of those government people, and I want Ryan out of the picture. Like, Ryan is snooping into something that I don't want. Or I want to set an example. I want gun control. I want people to vote against guns. Okay? Like, I'm one of those, pretend I'm one of those fucking government people where I want to take away the gun rights of people. What do? You take fucking 15 different people whose profiles you know. Like, you've looked through social media, you got the profiles plugged into your software, and you know, based on this scenario and this scenario and this scenario, they're going to go radical. They're going to go and shoot up a school or shoot up a mall. So then you can just go make the scenario happen. They shoot up everywhere. The news runs their, you know, their report, their articles and stuff. Oh, this fucking guy went and did this, and maybe he's from Syria, maybe he's from whatever, right? So by putting this out, you get enough shootings going on, and then the government can come in and say, okay, we want to ban guns because there's all these shootings happening lately. There's all kinds of shootings happening. We can't have the guns in the hands of the people. But
so they create a narrative around the situation.
Exactly. The people see it in the news so many times that
that's called social engineering.
Social engineering, exactly. And I think that is a logical explanation for how they can pick their targets like that. Like, you pick, like, fuck, everybody I mean, think about it. Everybody complained that, oh, I don't want the government to know what I'm searching. I want to be anonymous online. I don't want anyone to know what I do. So what do? They give us Facebook. And now everybody fucking posts everything about themselves. It's like, at 3 a.m. I took a shit. At 5 p.m. I ate pizza. At this time...
Here's the food I'm eating. Here's the movies I'm watching. Here's the people that I'm associating with. Here's the music I listen to. Here's the car I drive.
Here's my family baggage.
Here's something weird that I noticed with Facebook recently. Now, I only have Facebook for effed up stories. And Facebook, I've set up the effed up stories Facebook page wrong. And I set it up as if it was a person. I fucked up because I don't do social media and I don't know how to use it. I know how to use it now. Anyway, after, all these years, it finally it caught up to me and it said, okay, you're not a company, you're a person, blah, blah, blah. So I had to put myself in as a name, and I did. And now when I'm going around, right, like I go to work in the morning and I'm outside having a cigarette, I'm flipping through my phone, and on the bottom of the screen, you know what it says?
What?
It says, Facebook says, arrived at work.
Yeah, actually, my phone has the same fucking thing. Like, it's odd. Like, first of all kinds of social media. I mean, being truthful, I mean, I only really have that stuff because it goes hand in hand with doing the show. Like, I never used to use Facebook and shit like that. I mean, I had an account for my music, but I never really used that stuff. Like, and even now, the only postings you'll see, like, from like 4 months ago, you'll only see like YouTube posts, and now you'll start seeing posts of like my son, and that's because I post it so that like my mom can see it and shit like that. But I don't do all the like, this is what I did for breakfast, blah blah blah. That's the most I've ever done. That's as deep as I've gotten into it. But that being said, all these social media, different, whether it's Twitter, it's Facebook, it's what's it called? The image ones. I don't even know what they are, but they're all linked together because they discovered, like, for example, when this goes on YouTube, right? It's automatically going to post to my Facebook page. It's automatically going to post there. And that's kind of good for what I do. But what a lot of people, I don't think, realize is that happens to all your shit. Usually you'll give the okay. You got to click yes, yes, yes. It's just like those agreements you get when you get software, right? It's like, okay, okay. Who the fuck reads those things? It's like 50 pages long and only a lawyer can understand it. I mean, already you're fucked. Even if you wanted to read it, you can't understand it unless you speak legalese. I mean, the fact that we have to agree to something that we have to bring to a lawyer to completely understand is pretty ass backwards, right? In fact, it probably started off with this is just how they cover their asses, but don't think that they don't use that against people all the time, because they fucking do. So that's the world we're in now. I mean, look at all your apps. Has anybody ever stopped to wonder why your apps, like almost all of them, are free, right? Because two different things happen. One is either you got ads running at the bottom of it all the time. They make more fucking money with the ads than they'd ever make selling it to anybody. It's either that, or you just gave away all kinds of rights. Like, I remember there was a flashlight app. Like, everybody gets a flashlight app, right? And when you agree to it, nobody noticed that, hey, I gave agreements to have access to my contacts, to my geo-targeting locations, to like all this different kinds of shit. And you know what those companies do? They take the millions of fucking bits of information they get from people from these apps, your names, where you live, maybe your email address, and they fucking sell it. They sell it to companies that, like, these really shady companies that buy it, and that's where all your spam comes from. And sometimes it's not even just spam to buy shit. Sometimes it's fucking phishing emails, and they get your credit card numbers, or they get your login information from somewhere else. Like, the technology is so ingrained into us today. It's so at our fingertips. It's so involved in everything we do. But a lot of people are so fucking ignorant. Do you know how many people I talk to in a run of a day that's like, oh, I have a new credit card because mine was stolen. Oh, I have a new credit card because mine was stolen. Do you know how common that is today? And most people lose it not because, someone stole their credit card literally, or they stuck like one of those magnetic readers on an ATM somewhere. Most people get it because they're vulnerable with the shit that they do on the internet, because everybody's installing those the third-party fucking plugins for their browsers. Nobody questions it, or you download something and don't realize that the free program came with also a free fucking Trojan on the end of it. Like, that's the world we live in today. And just to make a perspective point, I haven't had a virus since I was a child. Okay, I was probably like 14 or 15, and that's the first time that I ever got a virus. And I don't even think it was my fault, because I had this stupid fucking kid that used to come to my house and download everything onto the computer. But that's the only time I had one. So even today, I don't have one. I don't run fucking antivirus on my computer. I don't do any of that shit. I don't get any of that stuff, because I know where to go, what's a link to something I want, what isn't. I know how to look at a URL and tell where I'm being sent. I know what kind of file does what. That shit don't happen to me. But for the majority of folk who aren't technically inclined, they catch everything. Right? So,
So I see somebody asking about the bizarre disappearances. Now, the bizarre disappearance story we already covered about, 45 minutes ago?
Yeah, that was the first story we did, was a bizarre disappearance of a kid.
Was that the first one?
Yeah, in 1909. I do have another story though. Free porn isn't. Some of it's free. Again, you got to know where you're going. Perhaps I've said too much.
Perhaps I've said too much.
But
so what do you think, folks? Another story? Should we do? I think we should.
Well, I got Spike's story here. I thought that, because I was looking for Christmas ones, and he sent me one. It's really short. It's not much to it. Yeah, I mean, let's do Spike's story. I haven't even read through it yet. God only knows, this could be like another Raped by Bigfoot story, and I don't know yet. But yeah, let's go through it and see what it is. So, and then Ryan,
Ryan, tell your farm story.
So I'll do this one because it's only short, and then you tell your farm story.
Okay, let's hope I'm not too drunk to tell it.
Well, I don't think there's been such thing as you too drunk. The amount of punishment you do to your body.
Oh,
all right.
Take it.
All right, let's see. Okay, so this happened. This is from Spike. He's in the chat here. You guys can see this. He said this happened last year, 2015, at Christmas. He said he lives in the same town as his parents, and every year, around the 15th, they go and visit his grandmother. And he can't go because of work, so they ask him to watch over, the animals, which consists of 2 dogs. So Spike brought his cat with him, and the cat and the dogs are apparently the best of friends. And, so that the cat wouldn't be alone in the house, right? And anyway, so he was watching a movie, and on catch-up, record shows and stuff like that to your, I guess like PVR, right? And both the dogs and the cat was with him in the house, and suddenly he started hearing scratching, sounds at the front door. And he got up to see what was, touching the door, what was causing this. And touching the door handle, he said it was cold, and he heard a howl. And he said it's summer there it's summer here that time, and they're around Christmas. So I guess they have a hot Christmas or whatever. So he said it was kind of like a heat wave that night. And anyway, it was not a dog's howl. It said it sounded more like a wolf. And from the opposite side of the door, or that's where it was coming from. Again, it's not edited the best. Anyway, he said immediately he went to check the security monitor for the front door. Apparently his parents are very paranoid. They have 3 cams watching the front door, the back door, and the gate. And he said there was nothing. And he said looking at the other 2 monitors, he heard scratching at the back door, but there was nothing on the camera. So he guessed that he made a deal with the devil that he didn't know, because the next morning when he checked, both doors had deep scratches on them. No paw prints in the mud in the area or any holes dug up under the fence. And there's a 5-meter high 5-meter high fence. So all evidence points to ghost hounds and or demon dogs, supernatural style, but probably ghost hounds. So, to summarize this, he went to his mother's house to babysit, brought his cat, and heard some howling out at the door. They got monitors set up. Couldn't see anything on the monitors. And when he went out to check, there was deep scratches into the door. That is pretty strange. So Ryan, if you want to give your thoughts, and or actually you can
that was the entirety of the tale.
Oh yeah, it was really short, like I told you.
The deep scratches at the door, nothing on the cameras.
Nothing on the cameras. Yep.
Again, you know, we look at these stories. We look at you know, we talk about these stories. We look at these tales, and you know, I think about some of the weirder tales that I've read, right? Where somebody hears a scratching at the door and runs up, opens the door, and there's this giant amorphous creature that doesn't look like anything they've ever seen before, with eyes and mouths and claws and tentacles and just strange beast at the door. And they slam the door and the thing goes to the windows. Likewise, there was that, what was that security camera footage that they call, what did they call that thing? The walker? No, not the fast walker.
The walker on what?
The fast walkers is what NORAD refers to as UFOs. They call them fast walkers.
Okay.
But it was this creature that just looked like a pair of legs, and that's it. It was just like this upside down U, an N, I guess. And it was walking across a yard. Or the police report where he stopped on a highway when he seen this large frog man standing on the side of the road, hop over a guardrail, then hop across the street and down into a ravine.
Frogman. I've heard of that before.
A frogman. Like, that's a very old story. I remember reading about that in a book from the library when I was like 10, right? So the idea that there are situations where creatures, otherworldly creatures, I mean, that's not normal animal behavior. I mean, you know, I grew up hunting and fishing in the woods, and never have I ever had an animal come up to the door of my cabin and scratch at the door. In Hunter's case, I think perhaps he has made himself a visible target, perhaps.
You mean
yes.
Spike's case?
Or Spike, sorry. He perhaps has made himself visible to some of these things.
Well, I'll just mention this because I remember, like, I've gone through, you know, I've been going through our submissions forever, and we got a good many stories from Spike. So Spike, you know, he's very much into dealing with stuff, you know, picking where you shouldn't be picking. You know, it's great for us because we we get lots of stories. Go ahead, keep it up, you know. But you know, if you deal with things like that, I mean, you know how it is, right? If you go looking where you're not supposed to be looking, a lot of times this stuff follows you back. And I mean, a lot of us.
What's the saying? Take care how long you stare into the abyss, because you may just find that it's staring back.
I wish I had $1 every time. Every time you said that. But yes, that is.
It's one of my favorite quotes. You know, I mean, I've spent my whole life staring into one abyss or another, right?
Yeah.
And I've had various bizarre things happen throughout my life. Is that their drinking game? Ryan takes a drink and we take a drink.
Well, you guys are in for a world of hurt. If you...
yeah, I hope you don't have to work tomorrow.
Yeah, I drank with Ryan, and yeah, I you know, I can't keep up. I don't know anybody that could keep up with Ryan. You know, the man is like, it's an impossibility for what you'd expect a human body to be able to take as a punishment. But anyway, I will say this. I was looking at some stories. Like, I mean, I got a lot of... yes, let's do a GoFund thing for Will's rum. Will would love to have some rum.
We don't need a GoFundMe. We need a Will to quit being so fucking lazy and go to the liquor store.
Hey, Will is a new daddy, and he's busy a lot, and his son had a bunch of shots today, and...
I went on my lunch break. Instead of eating lunch, I committed to my alcoholism, and I drove to the liquor store and got back to work in time. Yeah,
but I need to eat. I'm a man who likes, I think I like my food more than my booze, so...
Look, Sleuth, drinking in Toronto is nothing. Come drink in Calgary where it's high altitude, baby. It's like drinking on an airplane.
and it wouldn't matter anyway. Like, Ryan the dude, like, what was it, those fucking vodka coolers? It's like, oh, Will, you should try these apple vodka coolers. They're really good. Like, I'm like, oh, yeah, they're pretty good. I'm drinking. It's like, the dude fucking uses that as mix. Not Coke or like something, like he uses an alcoholic drink as a mix for his hard.
No, those were the ciders.
Ciders, that's right. I actually like those.
Yeah, I was using. I call it sparkling cider, where I go half vodka, half apple cider.
Yeah, the man is a. I don't know. Even Scotland, I know that they got a history of drinking.
Fick Calgary, I'm from Scotland. Where the men are men and the sheep are fucking scared.
Now do the fat bastard thing.
No, I'm good.
Anyway, what I was going to...
I love the Scottish. I work with a couple of Scottish guys, and fuck, they're salt of the earth, solid fucking dudes.
So what we got here, I want to mention, because like I got an influx of submissions since I last asked for them. We're only an hour and a half in. I mean, it is our Christmas episode, right?
Yes.
I got 4 here from Amethyst, and fuck. I mean, they sound pretty cool. I mean, do you want me to at least like read one? I mean, they're not super long or nothing like that, but you want to just at least do 1 or 2 of them and just see how they are.
For sure. Should I? See, I keep seeing this. People are saying that their video is gone and coming back. I've seen my video and the and the chat kick out a couple of times. Are you getting that on yours?
No, but I'm hosting. Right?
Okay, yeah. Liquor stores don't deliver, no, but if you pay a couple extra bucks, a cabbie will pick up the liquor for you. And
yeah, I'm not paying a cabbie extra money. They're like, some of those guys around here are fucking dirty, man. I wouldn't even want to drink off the bottle.
All right. So should I do my farm story?
Oh, fuck yeah. I forgot about that. Do your farm story.
All right. So, oh man, many years ago, I'm 31, and I believe I was 14 years old when this happened. So, I was at a friend of mine's house. His name is Steve, and he lived on one of the only farms in the area. And we were kind of into a little bit of weird shit. We like ghosts and demons and aliens and those kinds of things. And I've always been really into the dark side of stuff. So I had, I had a couple of different websites. I had all kinds of information on demonology. And I had just begun dating this girl. She was a crazy chick from an area we call across the bay. She was from across the bay, and bay girls had their own stigma. But she had an ex-boyfriend that was a real asshole. So this one night, while I was at the farm, because we were bored and there was fuck all to do, we had a little bit of liquor, and then decided to do a ritual that involves summoning a demon. So I pulled up some information on demons and I sat down and in the course of maybe an hour or two actually created my own demonic summoning ritual. So we stole some of his mother's Christmas candles and the red ones because this particular demon, which was a demon of vengeance. Oh, look at that, Jackie Tar. I was actually born in Stephenville, so that's a racial slur.
Hey, my cat was too.
All right.
I'm not joking. He's here.
Good old Mr. Fries.
You keep talking.
So, I put together this ritual, and I took this great big red candle, several red candles, and I set up enough on all the points of the pentagram, and lit up one of the candles and started pouring the wax out just outside of his house into a pentagram, and then put that candle in the middle. And then we, there you go, there's Mr. Fry. And then I set about my ritual. And this was my first ever destruction ritual, I guess, where I was attempting to summon a demon, demonic entity, evil spirit, whatever you want to call them, to do harm onto another person. So it took about 45 minutes, and, you know, then the ritual ended. I wrote what I wanted to have happen, put it in the center, burned it, you know, using the candle that was in the center, and that was that. So we went upstairs a little bit later, just to, you know, to get some food or whatever. And it was in the summertime, so his window was open in the kitchen. And all of a sudden, we started hearing this unearthly noise. I don't even know how to describe it, right? It was howls and yowling like nothing I've ever heard before. So my buddy Steve looked at me and was like, dude, what the fuck? Now, just, you know, the further the story, it was just him and I home. His two sisters were gone. His mother and father were gone. And we were just, you know, just doing whatever the fuck we wanted to do. We're out in the middle of the country, just totally bored. And, you know, we come up with this demon summoning ritual. So this sound kicks up from outside. And we looked out, and there had to be like 20 or more cats. And I mean, he's out in the country. There were some farm cats, but not that many. But there had to be 20 cats all gathered underneath the window, which incidentally was where we had performed this ritual, and just attacking the fuck out of one another. It was a battle royale. I believe I may have touched on this story before. This total battle royale between all these cats. And it like the sound itself was unreal. I've never heard anything like it before that or after. And like it really, really freaked the shit out of us. So we kind of like huddled in another room, went and played some video games and stuff like that, and just tried to forget it. But the sound from outside was unreal.
What is it about cats and the paranormal in general?
Oh, man, gateways, right? The underworld. I don't know.
Like they're prominent, right? Like they're very prominent in not even just, you know, paranormal stories and stuff like that, but man, all the way back to Egyptian mythology. Exactly. You know, it reminded me actually, even though that it's not like your story, but you know how I mentioned that Isaac, every now and then he watches something around the room that isn't there, and you know, it, like follows it you know, kind of like at it and stuff like that. And one night, when he was like really, you know, into that, I heard outside the door. This is recent. This is like within like the last month or something like that. And I heard it must have been like at least 2 or 3 different cats doing this really big, drawn out, like, you know, like I guess like as if they were about to fight, maybe. But it was like
it's the cat growl,
right? And
I hear it all the time now that I have a dog and a cat.
Well, the ones I was hearing, because it was multiple cats, and just the way that they kind of synced up and stuff like that was really creepy sound, and I was like, what the fuck is that? And I wondered if Fry was out, and sure enough, I opened the door, and there was Fry sitting on the stoop, and here were these like 2 or 3 cats had actually come up right to the doorstep and were like howling at him. Yeah, I found out. Well, maybe that happens all the time, but it was spooky sounding when I heard it. Right?
Oh, for sure. So as the night continued, you know, we just kind of tried to distract ourselves because these cats were outside fighting for like 2-3 hours. It was insane. It was the craziest fucking wildlife moment of my whole life. And I say wildlife because, I mean, while the farm had a few cats, it did not have 20 fucking cats. I mean, I spent a lot of time on that farm with my buddy Steve. I love that place. I love being out there. And, you know, there weren't that many cats there, but it was bizarre. So later on, we finally, you know, the night winds down, we go and crash. Steve had this huge sectional couch. So it had like 2 recliner chairs, then this like love seat, and then it turned into like a corner seat that, you know, went on into a full-on couch. It was huge. I have no idea how they ever got it into that basement. Anyway, that's where we'd sit down there, play pool, shoot the shit, steal his parents' liquor, watch the big screen TV, whatever. And finally we just crashed for the night. He crashed on the love seat portion because he was a little skinny guy and he'd curl up into a ball. And I crashed on the couch because, you know, I've always been a great big bastard. So yes, a ritual was to get rid of my girlfriend's ex. So around, I don't know, 3 in the morning, 3:30, something like that, I woke up and I was all alone, right? And like that was one of the things, like my buddy Steve had a massive house. Like their house was fucking huge. Basement was fully furnished. It was 3 levels. And like when you were downstairs by yourself in the basement, you really did feel alone, right? And I mean, because we were out in the country, it was pitch black. You know, it was uncomfortable, and so, you know, we always just kind of slept in the same area, whether it was on the floor or whatever. We were always all kind of slept around the same area. So when I woke up, Steve was gone, and it freaked me out. I'm like, what the fuck? And so I woke up and I tried falling asleep, couldn't fall asleep, and just ended up staying up until the sun came up. Finally, around 6 or 7 o'clock, I went upstairs and I knocked on his door, and you know, he opened it. And I was like, "What the fuck, dude? Why'd you leave me down there all night? You know, like fuck, you know, it's freaky down there." And he looked at me and he said, "Dude, you scared the fucking shit out of me last night." He said, halfway through the night, like around 3 o'clock, he said, "You started speaking in this weird language, you know." And, you know, he actually imitated it for me. It was something like, you know, you know, like it almost sounded like just this really deep voiced backward speak, right? And I mean, I hadn't been smoking and drinking for a decade back then, so my voice was nowhere near as deep as it is now. So it you know, kind of put me off, and I said, "Well, what happened?" And And so I sat up and I said, Ryan, wake up, Ryan, wake up. And he said, you instantly sat straight up, looked directly at me, and then said something backwards in this very deep voice, and then just instantly laid down. And he said, your eyes were just insane. They were wild. They didn't look like they were your eyes. And he said, I jumped up and ran upstairs and spent the rest of the night. So, we come back downstairs, and his sister had come home, and she had made some food for us and whatnot. And, they were eating. They were like, hey, Ryan, have something to eat. And I was like, no, I don't want anything. And about 15 minutes later, my father had phoned me on my cell phone and said, I'm here to pick you up. The whole plan was actually to spend the day with my girlfriend, who was coming to my father's cabin, and me and her, my father and my father's wife, were gonna stay at his cabin together. And so she was coming soon, or she had already arrived, I can't remember. And just before he came and picked me up, I got violently fucking ill. Now, I mean, I hadn't eaten anything in like 14 hours, but I just kept vomiting and vomiting and vomiting. And for that whole day, I was just so violently ill that I couldn't do anything. And, the next day, my girlfriend called her father, and he came, picked her up, and all that. But, that was my first experience with the other side.
Well, I'd like to offer a little bit of perspective, seeing as, well, I'm not Steve, but, I've been your friend for a long time. So just for everybody, who wonders, I guess, what it's like to be around somebody who's really into that stuff. Honestly, like, right from when me and Ryan first started hanging out, and this was like, man, this is well over a decade ago now, like 12 years, 13 years or something. Yeah, I think I was like 17 or 18, maybe, right? And I'm like a year older than you. And right from the get-go, there's something about Ryan. I mean, the fact that maybe he's into this stuff and he always has something around him. Of course, I found it interesting, seeing as how, like, I was interested in the paranormal stuff my whole life. But there is like a shadowy kind of ominous feeling that comes with Ryan, we'll say. And I know, Ryan, that we like mentioned this before, but or at least you and I spoke about it, but we've had a couple mediums and psychics and stuff on the show, and we've had segments where Ryan and I talked to them together, and we've also like had one-on-ones where like Ryan would talk to one or I would talk to one. And I kid you not, there's been at least 2 or 3 different psychics that I've spoken to, and they always try to do like a little bit of a reading. Like, it's not a full-on reading usually, at least to start, but they'll say, oh, by the way, here's what I got, here's my impression of what I got from you, the energy I felt. Here's my impression of what I get from Ryan. And everybody who's read Ryan, who spoke to me about it, has said that there's something really scary about them, that, like, it scares them to look into them. So
there's I think the at least 2, maybe even 3 of them, and this has been completely unsolicited on my part, have said that there is a darkness about them.
There is, and like I said, like, I felt that myself. Part of it probably has something to do with the shit you got me involved with when we first, and we're not going to go there again, but. And
remember, you're one of 3 people that I introduced and got them to.
Oh, I know all about it. But the point I guess I'm trying to make is that it's something that I felt, and I mean, it's still there. I mean, we're still best buds. We've had, but there is something there that, I mean, just speaking on the line, I guess, is that you know, because you are into the rituals and you've always been interested in that stuff, I really do think that maybe you've attached something either to you or something. Like there's something, you know, it's not just me. It's like the fact that like psychics and mediums have even told me, you know, themselves, you know, when they look, and I always found it interesting too, because like you're my buddy, so when they got information like that for me, I'm interested to see it. But don't you find that spooky at all?
I don't know if I find it spooky as much as I guess as a validation. You know, I've lived this life, right? Like I've been a part of this stuff, and I mean, some of the stuff I talk about publicly. I don't talk about privately. I don't talk about with anybody. You know, some of the impressions and experiences I've had have been very private, very dark, and you know, some of them I've shared with you. Some of them I've shared only with you and my brother. But you know, I guess we all have our own paths. We all have our own, you know, things, our own directions to take. And, you know, maybe some of us are more encumbered than others. With that said, I got 1 second. I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
One. Joking. But, yeah, for everybody, I guess, wondering, like, I joke about it and we joke about it. But there really is, there's something, man. There's something that clings to him that's a freaky, I don't know. There's, like I said, like, he's really dived into all these different things. And for as long as I knew him, and I just think that he's maybe got something attached to him, or, I don't know, but it's not all, you know, just like a part of the show kind of a thing. He's really, you know, been into that shit, right? So it's been an interesting ride to be on this side of it, to see it at a little bit of a distance, but see it anyway. It's always, especially for somebody who's interested in that. But yeah, he probably is gone for a whiz, Mary. He did drink, I'm sure, like half of that 26er. Yes, we're best friends. We've been best friends for a long time. In fact, it's our mutual interest in a lot of these things that really kicked off the friendship. You know, while everybody else was doing the typical bar hopping shit and stuff like that, Ryan and I were delving into this kind of thing and seeing what kind of weird stuff we could dig up. You know, in fact, that's one of the things I miss most about when Ryan lived here, was the fact that we would go out and, you know, do these experiments to see if we could find something weird. And you know what? When Ryan lived here, we found something weird all the time. It's something that I haven't really been able to replicate with anybody else. I mean, you could even take my wife, for example, who's like, you know, she's my best friend. You know, we share lots of things, and we watch lots of horror movies together. She even watches me play horror games, but, you know, she has no interest in going out and, you know, doing the ghost hunting stuff that Ryan and I used to do. I mean, for like the first year, I think that Ryan and I hung around, we had at least a handful of things. If you look at the first videos that we ever did, what you'll find is that we, you know, our video, like the first podcast that we did, the one with the old highway, the audio anomaly one that we had, and probably a couple others, that all happened within the first year. And that was the first year that Ryan and I were, you know, really into the occult stuff at the time. Ryan more so than me, but like he dragged me into it too. And yeah, we experienced. I remember that year. Now, Ryan, I know that you probably remember it as a different feeling because you were into it, like you were completely into it. But I remember that year feeling very dark. I mean, it was a very dark year. Like even looking back, like, you know, nighttime felt darker. Everything felt darker. There was a heaviness all the time.
Sometimes I wonder, and I don't think I've ever mentioned this before, but sometimes I wonder if I brought something to that city that wasn't there before.
Oh, possibly.
You know, and like, here's something else. I mean, I'll give another shout out to Steve. I haven't spoken to him in many, many years. You know, I moved away 12, 13 years ago, whatever it was. And, you know, I haven't seen him since then. But, you know, even before I ever introduced him to that world that I was so interested in, I had found a number of rituals and whatnot to perform. And even back then, when I was, you know, 13, 14, I was really into meditation. I was really into control of my own body and my own mind. It was long before I'd ever discovered, well, I mean, I discovered drugs, but
who hasn't at that age?
But you know, I didn't really do alcohol. I wasn't doing drugs heavily or anything like that. You know, just occasionally smoking weed with you know, friends here and there. But I just thought of something that I had performed a ritual again at my cabin. And my cabin was always a magical place for me. There was something special about that area. It was called Sandy Beach, and it was such an otherworldly place for me. It was only about 40 minutes away from where I lived, but it was kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It was right on a lake, and I had a lot of really intense spiritual experiences, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And a lot of real individual, you know, I would sit on the edge of the lake and have this really,
You all right?
yeah. Just give me a second. I got to make sure it's not another severe allergic reaction.
Oh, Jesus, don't do that on a live podcast.
Oh, could you imagine? I would leave it coming to and make the paramedics come upstairs and get me. All right. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I have a weird allergy to something that nobody knows what it is, including me. It has hospitalized me 3 times, and the last 2 times has almost killed me. So every time I have a sneeze, it's... you know, I gotta sit and think about it for a second. Have I eaten anything or taken anything the last 2 hours that may kill me? Anyway, this one night I remember that I had come across this ritual. It was one for attaining power, mostly in the idea of obtaining occult power, and in order to have the ritual be a success, one of the requirements was to sacrifice a living creature, but also to use a dagger that has actually taken the life of other creatures, right? And luckily for me, I had kind of inherited my father's hunting knife. So my father would hunt, shoot an animal, and if it wasn't quite dead when he showed up, would use this knife to slit its throat so that it would pass on quickly. And so I had this dagger. In fact, I still have it today. Should I go get it?
If you are,
I keep it by the side of my bed, honestly, because if I ever have to take a life in the middle of the night, I want it to be that hungry blade.
I have to run the baby monitor up to my wife. So
Okay,
can
go
we
ahead.
both run? We'll both run.
No, you go ahead. I will continue on with my tale, and I'll get it after.
All right, hang on.
If people are interested. If they don't give a shit, then I won't bother. There we go. So we got a couple. So go ahead, go do your thing, and I'll continue on my story. So this one night where I had my buddy Steve over at my father's cabin, we, I tell him, okay, tonight we're doing a ritual, and it's to give us more power, and he was very much into it, but into it in a way where it's like, yeah, sure, let's do this, because who doesn't want more power? But I was very, very serious about all this, and he was only partially serious.
What are we talking about?
So we're talking about this ritual in which I wanted to perform, where I would gain more power, and the idea was to gain more occult power. So, as twilight began, because that was part of the ritual, we had to capture a creature at twilight, and I did so. I captured 3 frogs, because that's all I could get my hands on. And I had this whole written ritual that most of it was something that was a ritual that I had come up with, that I had taken what I had learned and turned it into, wow, we have 70 people on stream right now.
Yeah, we've had it for a little bit too.
Yeah, I never noticed. Thank you to everybody. I had taken everything that I read and learned, and I decided that, because right from the get-go, I realized that it wasn't so much the exact words as the intention behind it. Sorry, I'm just trying to arrange something here. It was the intention behind it. So, in that vein, I had concocted this ritual, which was, a series of written words and proclamations to certain entities that I had learned about over, the year or so that I was really into that stuff. And I had picked out a spot that I had kind of, performed some meditation and some, I don't know, dark prayers, I guess you'd say, over. And it was a stone that was, there was these several stones that were way out into the lake. And then the last stone was really flat. And the moon was full. It was just like this perfect night. And we went out there, and like on the way out, as we're walking out there down this trail, I see a frog jumping across the path, and I'm like, perfect. I grab the first one, and I give it to my buddy. Thank you, darling. I give it to my buddy, and then I found another one and another one. And by the time we get down to the lake, I have 3 of these frogs. So I get down, and I sit down on the edge of the lake, and the sun had just finally gone down. The moon was, getting a little higher in the sky. And I said my certain prayers and did my kind of internal meditation. And then I jump up and I say, okay, let's do this. And we step out onto the ride, and it was precarious. Like if you slip, you were going down hard into rocks and cold water. And we got out into the water, out onto the rock, and I pulled these frogs out, said the ritual, and I fucking cut each one of them right in two.
Ryan, not to interrupt you, man. I don't know if you're fucking doing like some kind of weird conjuring. There's a weird smell here right now. It's like some kind of mechanical shit. I hope my computer's not fucking frying up.
I hope not either. So
I hope not, Sleuth.
Yeah. Oh, I was holding it a little high. So I mean, this is, as far as knives go, I mean, it's a pretty decently long blade. I'm not a small guy, and it's a decent blade. I mean, this blade has taken the lives of many moose, a few rabbits, and definitely at least 3 frogs. So performed the ritual, and it wasn't long after that I did that whole demon summoning thing with my buddy Steve. And I mean, I didn't have the knife with me at the time because, my father was very paranoid about me going anywhere with a knife like this. The handle is actually made from moose antler. My mother's side of the family has her father was Native American, and he made the handle out of actual moose antler. So it's always been very important to me. It's also in a homemade leather scabbard, and I keep it in my bedside table, kind of sticking out like this, and I can find it, in my sleep pretty much. And every time I've ever heard a bump in the night, I pull it out and go and check out to see what all the kerfuffle is about. The ritual itself, it pretty much involved just placating myself to several different entities that I won't get into, and asking for, power, and in particular occult power, and because I very, very much wanted to have command over things in the world of the unseen. And I honestly think that was the beginning of a lot of this stuff for me. I mean, I've always had weird experiences when I was a kid, but as I grew up, I got deep into the occult, and this was, this knife was a big part of it for me. And in fact, and all the rituals that I performed when I was deep into what we refer to as Satanism, this is what was used. When I went through the ritual process of, selling my soul, this was the knife that I used to cut myself, to write my name in blood on the contract. I think I only managed to get Will to pick a scab, but for me, I cut myself pretty deep with this thing, and it's still to this day, it has like an unholy sharp edge, Like it's crazy because this comes in and out of the scabbard all the time, and that alone should dull it. But
is that the knife that you had me do those ridiculous poses for your book cover, and then you just laughed at them afterwards?
no,
Okay.
no. That this knife is that was just a silly dagger that I had gotten as a gift. This thing means a lot to me, and I wouldn't I've ever used it in that way.
Okay. Now, that being
Somebody asked, did I buy it back?
no.
No, no, I did. Mary, yes, yeah, something did. I won't get into that, but needless to say, the few times that I performed the destruction rituals, they really did fucking work. I mean, as far as Billy is concerned, I mean, that guy, all sleuth, like that's what makes me sad. He's got to leave for a cigarette. I mean, you know, let's all just have a cigarette for Sleuth, who has to go outside and smoke like an animal. That's terrible.
I suppose it comes in.
There's very few things I've been reverent about, but this dagger is definitely one of them. It's been with me for a very, very long time. And while I am a very scientific-minded person, there's a certain aspect of there's a very particular aspect of magic that I really adhere to, and that's the idea of intention, right? The mind, what you intend. A lot of this stuff, including ritual, it helps get your mind into a certain place, and that's what allows you to project that kind of intention.
I wonder if it's my fucking microphone burning out.
Your microphone burning out?
You know what? I think it is my microphone.
Oh my, here we go. It's a spontaneous human combustion.
Well, my microphone...
You gotta go take a shower now, or...
No, maybe my microphone's gonna burn up. But I actually do have to jet here soon because I got to work in the morning, and Brittany's waiting for me before she goes to bed. That's
I know. A lot of people here have been with us for like over 2 hours now. Thank you all so very much for joining us tonight. For those of you who have to leave or need to leave early or take a break or whatever, regardless, thank you so very much for joining us and being a part of this.
For sure. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and I'm glad that we got 2 shows off. We got one yesterday and one tonight. They're both big hefty podcasts, really. And I'm sorry I didn't get some of the submissions that I was hoping to cover, but on the upside,
Ryan's talked some more.
on the upside, I got a ton of submissions for our next shows coming up. Like the one Amethyst sent me, she sent like 4 different stories. I also have some stories here from, where's it to? Robert Mason. I have some stories from him. I just got to grab off the server. So yeah, plus a whole bunch of other ones. So yeah, I mean we're not gonna have an episode next Monday, and that's why we did 2 like right now. But yeah, we will have lots to give you guys the week after that. And of course, if you have a story, send it in, because we're burning through these pretty quickly now. There's never been a better time to submit your stories. So yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Oh, and have a Merry Christmas.
And yeah, I was just going to say that everybody, please have a Merry Christmas, have a Happy New Year, be safe, look after yourselves and your families. Effed up nation, effers for life. Don't sell your souls to dark entities. It's not worth it, even if you end up with a sweet beard.
It sounds like he's joking, but he's not. Don't do it. All right, guys. Yeah, I'm going to stop the stream, but thanks for stopping in. Have a Merry Christmas, and don't drink too much unless you plan to really chase that with some water so you don't get too hungover.
Now, before we jump off, though, are there any specific questions that anybody has that we should hit up before we cut out? Because, I mean, we're not going to be back for a little bit.
Ryan, to finish the story about how he may have brought something dark to the ghost hunting. Well, I think that's just purely in the fact of the rituals and the stuff he was digging into at the time. That
I think that I may have made myself into a walking fucking portal. I may have cracked open something, and as a result, have been, I don't know, in a way, I feel blessed, I guess, to have been able to experience all the different things that I've experienced. In fact, that farmhouse, farmhouse was a fucking mansion. That farm mansion where I performed probably, I think, one of my first rituals was where I see my first shadow people.
For sure. So anyway, I do have to get going though.
Do I get anything in my dreams? My dreams are fucked. My dreams are absolutely fucked. They're just inside out H.P. Lovecraft fucking Cthulhian nightmares of twisted flesh and pain and torment like you've never imagined. Ryan, did you start to see things you normally wouldn't? I guess so. I don't know. If there's, I've always seen and heard things my whole life. It just got more intense the older I got. Is it over? It's pretty much over. We're almost done here. I was not I baptized myself in my own blood as a Satanist, but I was also baptized as a Christian. But I later revoked that when I cut myself and baptized myself in blood. Josh Sattler, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. Does it bring harm to the people around you? I seriously hope not, but many people around me through the course of my life have had horrible things happen to them. I hope that it hasn't, but if it has, I would not be surprised. And
let's put it this way. One night after Ryan did one of his rituals, I bumped my leg, and it really fucking hurt. So, bad stuff.
There you go. We have to ask Ryan and Will. Haven't asked Ryan and Will show. Ryan, you're fucking lucky. I am a very lucky human being. I'm married to a woman who is so far out of my league you couldn't imagine. And I've had a whole series of events that have occurred throughout the course of my life that have made things very comfortable for me.
He has unusual luck. I put it to you.
I do.
He really does. Like it's creepy actually. But
you might even attribute it to dark forces.
Yeah.
Slay Acid 303 says, "Praise the Lord." Indeed, praise the Lord. Hail Satan.
All right. Now we gotta get out of this now. My wife's, she's gonna be heading to bed here soon. So, I gotta jet. What?
All Vorosaja Goho Satan Lonasa.
Now you see what you guys did. You can't turn him off once you start it. He's like the Energizer Bunny, and he's got liquor in him. All right.
He's got liquor in him, and he's like the Possessorizer Bunny.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I'm just going to hit stop here. Are we good or we're done?
We're good. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Maybe in the future, we'll find a way to do a after hours Ryan show when Will has to go to bed.
Okay,
we
yeah.
can talk about deeper, darker things.
Yeah, the stuff that I haven't heard before. Anyway, good night, everybody. It wasn't actually coming from out around. It was actually coming from above them. And they looked up to the sky and they didn't actually see anything, but that's where the voice was coming from. And they actually heard him say something like, "They've got me, help, help, they've got me." And as he was screaming like that, the voice started to get fainter and fainter until it disappeared. They were just stunned. They just stood around stunned as to what was actually happening. And of course, the priest had the lantern, so they were shining it around the yard to see if they could see anything. And what they found was like Oliver's footsteps, tracks in the snow, had actually gone out about 75 feet from the door, and they just stopped dead. And about 15 feet from there was the bucket that he was carrying. And so, there was no sign of a struggle. There was no anything like that. They didn't know what the hell happened, but he just simply up and disappeared. And so the next day, the police actually rounded up folks from like a nearby town, and they did a big search right around the area. They went out of all the different buildings, nearby hills, and they questioned everyone that was there that night. Everybody told the same story. They even went down in the well, and he wasn't down there. And of course, the tracks, like the footsteps and stuff like that, never even went to the well. So the only conclusion that they could reach was that Oliver had been grabbed by something in the air and taken upwards. Right? So, I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was alien abduction when I read it. And, so that happened way back in 1909. So that was a pretty chilly tale, and if nothing else, a very bizarre disappearance. And, I just want to say hello to everybody that just came in, that I popped in while I was telling that story. But, so, Ryan, your thoughts?
That's a bit of an unusual one. I will say that I kind of missed a little bit of the end of the story there because I was trying to answer some chat stuff. Although apparently David Plady showed up and gave us a thumbs down.
I'll tell you what, we had that thumbs down like the second after I said it. Like I last night I scheduled it. It's the first time I scheduled a live podcast, and like right after I scheduled it, it had a thumbs down. It's like it didn't even fucking happen yet. It's like 12 hours from now, but it just goes to show that we got some people that like hate me or you or both of us, and just
that are subscribed, but
they're subscribed, and every time a video comes up, it's like cock-sucking fucker. They just go in and anything that they could do right to they think it matters. I guess I don't know. I really don't fucking care. But
no. Well, you know what? It just means that we're living rent free in somebody's head.
We are, and it's something else that I wanted to mention about what we're doing tonight. You will be visited by 3 spirits, and I'm not even joking because Ryan told me before we started he did a destruction ritual.
What the fuck are you talking about?
I'm only fucking with you.
I got all that stuff packed away. I'd have to go and dig it out. So, okay. This, to get back to this story now. So the family went outside. They heard the kid screaming. And
from above.
And his voice was disappearing off into the distance. So, and that was it. Like, they never found the kid. He was gone. Yeah,
they never did find him. And, there was a lot of people there, like I said, and like the veterinary surgeon, the priest, and they heard it from above, above and going away. Unless like the whole family was like, "Fuck that Oliver kid, let's throw him down the well." Of course, they checked the well, but who knows? Maybe the whole family fucking hated him and they roasted him over the fire. I mean, that's the only way that you could explain it away other than paranormal to say that the whole family hated this kid and just like made him disappear.
That's like a real Jeepers Creepers kind of a moment, you know?
Yeah.
With the just and gone. Now,
Yeah.
it's interesting that last night we covered a story about
No wings.
a possible pterosaur, right?
Yeah.
Now, you know, the idea of reptiles, flying reptiles in winter, I don't know. But
That open up along this stretch, right? Or then you had delay lines. There's certain spots on delay lines that are said to be areas of power where like monumental structures are built, like whether it's the pyramids or something else. They're like important structures that are carefully planned and put there, right? So is this areas where the reality is thin? Is this where the dimension is thin? Maybe hot spots where people see certain entities, that's what it is. And maybe the entities coming through don't even try it. Just like us, right? Like we're walking around, maybe you just walk into a pocket somewhere. You know, you're still in your world as far as you can see, but maybe in another world you're a shadow, like part of you kind of seep through to that reality. Maybe we are shadow people somewhere else, right?
well, and that could very well be the reality of the situation. I know I was reading reading a paper on dark matter today, and you know the idea with regular matter is that if you look at space-time as being like a bed sheet, okay, that's held in four corners. You take a bowling ball and put it in the middle, right, and it draws down that bed sheet. That is what matter does to space-time. It creates this gravity well. And if you roll a ball along that bed sheet, it's going to get caught up in it and go around and around and around. And that's, you know, what we call an orbit and that kind of thing. But I read a description of dark matter, which was kind of interesting. And it was an idea that if regular matter is sitting on top of the bed sheet, pushing it down, the dark matter is under the bed sheet, pushing it up in the same fashion. Because there are some schools of thought on it that dark matter, this extra gravity that we seem to observe in the universe. Hey, there's my brother. Hey, Evan. That dark matter is in a slightly offset universe that pushes up. That while we can't interact with the matter in this other universe, right? It's just slightly out of phase, but gravity still leaks across the barrier. And that it turns out that for everything to operate the way it does, we need that. We need that extra gravity to hold everything together. That if it wasn't for that dark matter, that, you know, as far as the equations tell us, the different galaxies at the rate that they're spinning would just fucking spin apart. So it's just, again, is that old hermetic principle, as above, so below. And apparently that goes that's just as true for reality itself. That there's something, you know, we consider ourselves above, but there's something just below that's helping keep all this together. And it would make sense to me if one day we discovered that we were able to pierce that veil and that there's a whole other world. Maybe physics are just slightly different there. Maybe not. Maybe they're exactly the same. But we pierce through and find a whole other world where things are similar, I guess.
Oh, for sure. Especially, like, you know, if you buy into the multiple world theory and stuff like that, right? We could the
many worlds.
Yeah, it's like every time something happens, like another universe splits off, and the opposite happened there. Like every time you make a choice,
that's a little different.
Well, whatever, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So there's a that idea. I don't know how I feel about that one in particular, right? The idea that every time we make a decision that the possibilities split off, so much that there are an infinite number of parallel universes that exist simultaneously along with us. And if the number is infinite, then at some point things have to repeat, right? That you can only have so many combinations of atoms, even in an entire universe. And that along that line of thinking, if there are an infinite number of these universes, that in some of them things will be exactly the same as.
Okay, so I just hit stream. We're actually like 40 seconds early. Look at us. Usually we're late, right?
Can't be late to your own show, buddy.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think I've ever been late. That's complete bullshit.
What are you trying to say?
I'm saying it's all your fault. No, I'm just joking. I'm just waiting for it's kind of stupid. I kind of wish you could like put this in. You could say you're going live, and then the link goes out like 5 minutes before it actually goes live. You know what I mean? Instead of like everyone just got the notification, but the video's already recording.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's live streaming. It's just how it works.
Hey, Mike.
Some people like to hit the button and jump right into it.
I got to get the chat back into the thing here. So Mike is here. And
hey, Mike. How you doing, bud?
Oh, here. Oh, cool. The chat's already there. We got Russell. We got
Russell
Rob.
and Rob.
I'd like to see at least 10 people here before we start.
There's 15.
Is there? Why am I not seeing that? I'm seeing
right at the bottom underneath me. How many watching now?
Yeah, mine's showing 8.
Mine's showing 17. Hit refresh.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm afraid I'll fuck something up. Hey, Sleuth, Omar, Baba Kinkin. I'm still showing 8. What do you got?
17. Hang on, let me refresh. 18.
18. Hello, Shaman. All right, fuck it. We're just going to start.
Merry Christmas.
Hello, everybody, and welcome
Boston.
from Boston. And we got Josh, we got Candace, we got Jig, BMW.
Gerald Griffin. Are you from Newfoundland, bud? That's the worst part with the lag.
I was going to do this whole thing for Christmas. You know, I was going to put like a Santa hat on and get like a Christmassy drink and all that kind of shit. And then, you know, when do I have...
You decided not to be a fag?
When do I have time to do any of that shit anyway? But I do have some really, really cool stories, Christmas stories for you guys. And
yes, I have seen that video, Sleuth.
And I got something else. But anyway, just to start the show, I'm your host, Will Pender.
And I am your bearded co-host, Ryan Sharpe.
And now I'm going to get, I can't do the Santa hat, but I did get something. Just hang on.
What? What are you doing? Merry Christmas, everybody. So this will be our last stream before Christmas.
Hi, my little man.
Oh, you're bringing in Isaac.
Oh, shit, my headphone. Yeah, I couldn't do the Santa hat thing, but my little man got one. Oh! So I thought I'd bring him on to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. You're going to wish
him? Run out and drop him.
Say hi. Poor little guy. He had to get his shots today. I think he had 2 shots and some other stuff, so he's had a long, hard day. But
he's got his vaccinations, so now he's autistic.
Hey, don't even go there. But I just wanted to bring him on with his cute little Santa hat.
You're the one who pumped your kid full of fucking
hi, bud.
mercury.
Hi. Can you smile for everyone? Say hi, bud. Hi. Okay, he's not going to do it. But anyway, I do have some awesome stories, so just give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to bring him back to his mom, who refuses to go on camera. Hang on.
Oh, my. There we go. Yeah, I don't know. Vaccinations are great and all, but
you're paranoid of everybody and just anything.
Well, no, it's the preservatives that they put in them and the adjuvants. Right?
But see,
there's no safe level of fucking mercury. Period. There's no safe level of mercury. That's the truth of the matter.
You risk either getting something happen because of inoculation, or you risk getting the thing that.
Well, whatever. They got cures for all the diseases. You can't cure fucking being made retarded from.
No. They don't have cures for all that shit. Some of that shit's gonna kill you anyway if you get it, and that's the whole point.
What? Like what? Name one, Mr. Full of Information.
Mr. Full of Information would have to go on the internet, because I don't have a fucking encyclopedic brain like some people over here. But I'm telling you, it's a thing. Anyways,
it's a thing. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. You don't think people would be making billions of dollars if it wasn't good for you, do you?
Exactly. Now.
Right? Yeah.
Now, I got what I wanted to do was get some very specific Christmas stories, that are paranormal in nature. And as me and Ryan discussed before, getting those ones that weren't, Krampus or something else fucking thing. Just hang on.
I thought Good Evening was Buenos Tardes.
Yeah, most of them are like Krampus or Belschnickel or whatever. But I did find some pretty neat stories. So I'm going to start with the first one, and then we'll move on from there. So the story that I found, it was really neat, actually. It happened all the way back in 1909, and the story was actually printed in a paper called the Dresden Times on December 23rd, 1978. So anyway, as the story goes, this is actually an article. And this apparently had happened in Wales of Great Britain back in 1909. So it revolves around this 11-year-old boy named Oliver Thomas. And it was Christmas Eve. It was lots of snow. And, like back then, I don't know if it was common everywhere, but like, if you ever watch Disney shows now, you have like old Disney shows, like the family Christmases, like everybody got together, right? Like the house is just full of people, and not just like the large families of the time, but like, man, they invited their doctors, the people who knew their doctors, the people who made their glasses, just fucking everybody.
They just showed up, started giving vaccinations.
They showed up, started giving them vaccinations, and anyway, so this family was no different, right? Now they actually lived on a Brecon, in a Brecon farmhouse, or maybe the place was called Brecon, I don't know, but it was a farmhouse, and they had this crazy, family get together, the kind where everybody sat around the kitchen table and around the fireplace roasting chestnuts. Like, you heard that, right? Like roasting chestnuts over the fire. Probably never have done it or know anyone who's done it, but all those old sayings, like, they actually did that shit back then. So that's what they were doing. And they were celebrating Christmas, and they had the local priest there and his wife. They had the family's veterinary surgeon. They even had a fucking auctioneer from a nearby town, right? So like, it was a pretty happening place. And anyway, as the night progressed, it was snowing during the night, and around 11 p.m. The snow stopped, and there was about 5 inches of fresh snow on the ground, and it became one of those gentle, calm nights. Except, apparently there were no stars visible. It was just this black sky. And it was around this time. Now, back then, like, they didn't, at least here, they didn't have any, like, working water pipes. This is back when they had a well, and you have to go up to the well to get your water. So they had a sink, And the father noticed that they were at, like, the bucket that they had leaned up against the sink was out of water. So he's like, you know, like every father did back then, he made the children do all the work, right? So he sent his son Oliver out to do this. You know, something he's probably done 100 times. And anyway, so, you know, Oliver, he bundled up, he put his stuff on, and he stepped out into the yard or whatever. And very shortly after he closed the door, everybody in the kitchen heard him, like, screaming, like these blood-curdling screams, like, you know, for help. And, you know, the whole family in the kitchen, they jumped up, knocking chairs over, and just, it was just this mad panic to get out there and see what was happening. And the priest actually grabbed one of those paraffin lanterns on the way, and they got out on the stoop, and, you know, the priest waved the lantern across, you know, trying to get some kind of field of vision there, and they didn't see anything, and they were just kind of looking around the yard, and they didn't see anything. But the really bizarre thing that everybody noticed was that the screaming.
You know, the Omar just dropped what I was going to get into, I guess. The idea of alternate dimensions, right?
Well, yeah.
Portals and whatnot. I mean, when we're talking about the paranormal, there, you know, I've given this a lot of thought. There has to be a place for these phenomenons to come from, right? There's so many, you know, Bigfoot and Loch Ness, spirits, UFOs, shadow people, jinn, all the different crypto creatures. You know, the older that I get, the more, and like the more I realize how advanced our modern technology has come. Not to mention the fact that we're everywhere. Human beings are literally fucking everywhere. This planet is just maggoty with human beings.
Isn't it terrible?
And
it's awful. People are terrible.
People are terrible. Yeah.
Except for this group.
Except for this group, yeah. I'm all for having more people, but I think
no, you're not. You hate people like me.
Space stations and other planets. No, I just want them far away. Right.
I love people, just at a distance. Right.
That's exactly. I think the stuff that people come up with, like, you know, technology and stories and all that, is great. And I'd love for there to be 10 times the amount of people than there are.
So you're like,
but like,
I want people to make me
moon,
shit, but just not interact with me at all. Just
exactly.
Make my dinner and fuck off.
I like the interaction like this, you know.
Yeah, this is all right, but this is a good group of people so far.
People, but you know, if it ever gets too much, there's a little X in the top right-hand corner of my screen. One click and I'm out.
That's right. I do like that. It's a good feature.
You know. It's
not that we've ever had to use it here, but, you know, there are some pretty shitty. I mean, everybody agrees. Look at that. People are the worst. I hate people. Like, you know, I mean, come on.
People are cunts.
That's right. That's right. And we can all agree on that.
Oh boy. But I think stories like this illustrate a very the very unique nature of some of the paranormal encounters that happen. You know, there's so many people that talk about the big ones, right? Ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs. You know, those are these big paranormal situations that so many people across the board have had experiences with. Then there's these fringe things, right? And I think that's what Skinwalker Ranch really illustrated for a lot of people. That there could be these areas with very concentrated, bizarre, you know, Fortean activity. Things that are just way beyond the normal.
I think what you're driving at it's the same. Like I thought this before too, right? Like you got all these different kinds of entities and different kinds of this to that culture to this culture, and a lot of times they're really describing the same things. It's just
Sure.
it's just like, you know, that's their name for it somewhere else in the world, right? And I thought the same thing, right? Because they're so elusive. They're so, you know, it's so rare that somebody sees or interacts or has an experience with these different, you know, various different types of entities, whether it's shadow people, whether it's Bigfoot, whether it's, you know, whatever. And I think I thought the same thing as you, that maybe there are different portals or areas in the world where the, you know, the reality or the dimension is thin, and we have, you know, the neighboring dimension able to overlap, able to pass through. And, you know, the Skinwalker Ranch is a great example, because there was that time where they, was it not Tom, I forget his real name, I keep thinking about the fictitious name, but where he actually saw the rip in the sky.
I always mix it up. Like, was his real name Tad?
Ted.
Something like that.
I don't know. I just remember him as Tom. But
Tom Gorman. I think his real name was actually like Tad.
I know it got Sherman, like the real name is Sherman at the end, right? Like the last name.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But yeah, I mean they saw the actual dimensions opening up, and I mean there are different parts in the world where they say like here's the 8 different gates to hell.